All right, guys, today we're going to dive into one of the most requested comparisons I've ever gotten, which is the New Balance Rebel V4 here, an awesome lightweight speed training / everyday running shoe versus the Hoka Mach 6, which is basically the same thing, but from Hoka. So both of these shoes are lighter weight. They've got fun, soft, bouncy foams. They've got a slight little roll and rocker to them, and they're coming in at that $140 price point. So in the daily trainer market today, we see a lot of shoes either going towards more of this lightweight, fast construction like the Hoka Mach 6 and Rebel V4, or we see shoes like the New Balance 1080 V13 and Nova Blast Rebel V4, which are going up in stack height, adding more protection, more cushion, and more comfort. Now, that is a trend that we do see across the market: more cushion, more comfort, more protection, more stability with these wider bases. But these guys right here are going to be about giving speed, giving versatility, and giving something that you can turn to day in and day out for some faster everyday miles. So we're going to dive into the specs of both of these. I'll break down the differences in the foam, the midsole, the upper. I'll do a fit and feel comparison, and then we are going to get a bunch of miles in on both of these, and I'll let you know which one is going to be best for your rotation. So the New Balance Rebel V4 and the Hoka Mach 6 are both lightweight everyday running shoes that are designed to be comfortable, but also to give a fast ride. Now, what's interesting is that in the previous generation, both of these shoes were a little bit lower and designed more for speed. So the Rebel V4 here is now sitting at 30 millimeters in the heel and 24 millimeters in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop. And they've also moved the fuel cell foam in the midsole here to a PIBA and EVA blend. We see 80% EVA, ethylene vinyl acetate, which is a standard training foam, and then 20% PIBA. Now the Hoka Mach 6 here, very similar deal. The last generation of these shoes was sitting at about 30 millimeters in the heel. I'll flash out the exact specs on the screen. They bumped it up all the way to 37 millimeters stack height in the heel here, which is the same height as some max cushion shoes like the Triumph 20. I pulled that shoe out the other day, and I don't know if they're measuring these two shoes differently. This doesn't feel like that type of a max cushion shoe, but the way Running Warehouse is reporting the specs, it is showing 37 millimeters in the heel and 32 millimeters in the forefoot for a 5 millimeter drop. And so that's something these shoes have in common as well, right? That moderate drop. The New Balance is sitting at 6, the Hoka Mach 5 is sitting at 5, and they both are very easy to run in because of that. A lot of these shoes with a 4 to 8 millimeter drop are going to be friendly for heel strikers, particularly if they have more foam and cushion back here like this guy, and then also forefoot strikers, because you're not going to have a massive stack of foam in the heel here like a 10 millimeter drop shoe might have. That would get in the way if you were landing up on the front of the platform. Now, I just went and pulled out the last generation of these shoes so we can visually see the changes here. So first, let's take a look at this Rebel V3. I put about 250 miles on this. Still got a little bit of life left. So guys, let me know if you want to see any comparisons with the Rebel V3. We have something coming in soon that I think you might want to see compared to this. I won't give any spoilers. I might be dropping that first run video tomorrow. Go ahead and guess in the comments. But you can see this guy here has a much lower stack than the current generation of these shoes, and you can see that the foam just looks different. So in the Rebel V3, this is a supercritical TPU EVA blend. It's got a bit of a shinier sheen to it. And then moving to the PIBA EVA blend here, it's still soft, but it required some break-in, and it doesn't have that same exact soft bouncy feeling. Now, if we look at the Hoka Mach 5 here, the key difference in the Mach 6 to the Mach 5 is this guy had two types of foam in the midsole. So the top layer of Pro Fly Plus, which is supercritical EVA, more of that soft bouncy foam, and then a bottom layer of firmer standard EVA. You can see as I push it in here, even with 300 miles on this shoe, I am getting absolutely no give versus this. I can push it in all the way. So Hoka's moved the Mach 6 to 100% of that top layer, which was the blue foam that we saw in here, that soft, bouncy, supercritical EVA foam. We're getting a full bed of that in this guy, which is making for, so far, a really nice, soft, smooth, slightly bouncy ride. Now, in the Mach 6 here, what you're going to lose in this generation from going away from the standard EVA foam is a little bit of that rigidity, a little bit of that pop. Now, it's a little bit ironic because standard EVA isn't known to be the most exciting foam, But in this shoe, I did feel that throughout those 300 miles, it gave it not only durability, which EVA is known for, but it gave it a little bit of that structure so that when I did drop it down to some fast mile repeats, which for me is about 5:30 pace, I felt that it could respond pretty well. With this guy here, I'm a little bit skeptical that it's going to respond as well for that top end speed. And so that's what we'll do in this video. We'll do some pace pickup here and there to see how this guy responds, especially versus the Rebel V3 here. So current generation of these. So in the current generation of these, a little bit taller, a little bit more comfort oriented than last year's versions. And both of them have added some durability. So if we look around to the outside here, now on the Rebel, I have 100 miles. I put this through my 100-mile week test and it came out flying with shining colors. I think I butchered that expression. That's why I don't use those types of expressions. But you can see here we have worn the rubber down, but the foam is actually in decent shape. We got a big chunk of exposed foam here, but it's not worn through too much. Now, one of the things that I was critiquing Hoka on for how much exposed foam they have here is, why don't you just move the rubber from this part of the midsole down here? If you look at this Rebel, the main difference is they do the same strategic rubber layout, but on the Rebel, again, no rubber here, and they add a little bit farther back up the platform. This is a good angle to see that, right? You can clearly see that the Rebel extends just a little bit farther. The Hoka stopping a little bit more forward, which means we'll likely see a lot more wear and tear on the foam of the Hoka than the Rebel here. But, and I've showed some of you guys this before, if you look at my Mach 5 here, I still got 300 miles out of it, even though I completely ground down the heel. And one note here for my heel strikers, don't let them tell you got to change your form. If you're getting faster each year without getting injured, keep on running. You can send them to my channel and I'll tell them the same thing. Now heading out to the back here, you can see again, both of these guys are wide. And what this wide base is going to do is add some really nice stability to the shoe. And so both of these actually got a little bit wider in the current generation. You can see the Rebel V3 here. It's a little bit narrow. It also has more of that feeling when you stand in it that you're on top of the foam rather than in it. In this V4 here, New Balance has gone with one of these design trends, which I really love, which is pushing the foam up to cradle the foot so it sits inside the shoe. You can see where the foam cuts out here. That's actually where the foot is going to sit. Your foot probably starts right here, so you get, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch of foam that's wrapping the foot. Again, adds some more stability. So as you're running along, you get more support side to side. Same thing in the Hoka Mach 6. You get those flared, raised out sidewalls as well. And if we compare it to the Mach 5, it's actually pretty similar in here. Now heading up to the uppers of these guys, they both have lightweight performance feels. However, and I will do a try on fit and feel, I'll tell you right now, New Balance Rebel V3 is a lot more accommodating. Even if you get your correct size in the Mach 6, this is just a wider base altogether in the Rebel V4 throughout the whole platform. You can look at the forefoot of the Rebel V4 here versus the forefoot of the Hoka Mach 6. And it's a little hard to see from this angle, but you are getting a little bit more width on the Rebel V4. It's a little bit more noticeable if you look at this part of the forefoot right here. Now, looks wise, I love how both of these things look. Hoka Mach 6 is going for a super clean look. Hoka is a brand that tons of folks use for casual wear, and Mach 6 is going to be no different. This is going to look sweet around town at the coffee shop, go on a bio, go on a chem class, go on your sorority meetings. Rebel V4 here, I actually think they could be coming for the crown for that next everyday, not necessarily casual shoe, but athletic shoe. I can see tons of kids wearing these to the gym. I can see lax bros lacing them up with some crew socks. This is a sharp looking shoe. This light blue colorway isn't my favorite, but it is pretty clean. I'll typically go with something a little bit brighter. And New Balance has a ton of cool colorways planned for this that I've seen start to trickle out. They had some chai and matcha ones. Absolutely sick. So New Balance Rebel V4 also looks cool. It's just a little bit more athletic, muscular. This guy is almost preppy. It looks like I'm going to tennis club. Last little note about the upper here and the looks. Mach 6 does have the flared out elf heel and an extremely structured heel counter. This is the hardest heel counter I have ever encountered. I can barely move it. Rebel V4 is a little bit more flexible back here in the heel counter, and it doesn't have that elf heel. It cuts out here. It's a cleaner cut design look. The SC Elite V4 had the same deal, and we see a little bit less padding. So with that, let's pop both of these guys on the scale. All right, guys, so as we're getting these on the scale here, these are both 10.5 US men's, which we will discuss in a second. But left shoe of the Mach 6 coming in at 235 grams. Left shoe of the Rebel, this guy's coming in at 223. So Rebel is going to be a little bit lighter than the Mach. And I can verify, having put some miles in both of these, Rebel V4 does feel a little bit lighter, not just because of it's actually 10 grams lighter. The lower stack makes it feel a little bit more nimble as well. All right, guys, now I want to pop both of these on for a fit and feel comparison. All right, guys, first I'm going to pop on this Rebel V4 here, and as I got that 100 miles in the shoe, I was super impressed by how comfortable it became over the course of that week. So with my first miles in it, it felt a little bit stiff. It felt, I don't know if I would say firm, but maybe I did say that, but on the firmer side versus what I was expecting from the last generation of the shoe, because the supercritical TPU and EVA blend in here is a little bit softer, I think, out of the box than this guy. But now stepping into this, the step and feel is amazing. It feels like it's completely conformed to my foot. And I mentioned this the other day, but it reminds me a lot of that old Nike Infinity Epic React. If you guys are familiar with that shoe, and I pulled it out when I was reviewing the Pro 4, because this guy has a sock upper, and that Epic React also had a sock upper. I absolutely love sock uppers. This Rebel does not have a sock upper, but the way that it fits, it feels like it has a sock upper. It is an extension of my foot, and throughout that 100-mile week, it became an extension of my foot. I just fell in love with everything what the shoe has to offer. And so, slipping on the Mach 6 right now. And in my first run review, I mentioned you got to go up half a size in the Mach 6. I harped on that at length. I'm not going to do that now. But my left foot's also a little bigger, so I decided not to punish myself and put the Rebel on my left foot right now. I will have plenty of opportunity to punish myself tomorrow running multiple miles in the small Mach 6. Anyway, we got both of these guys tied up, and I can tell you just on initial step in, and of course we got 100 miles in the Rebel and only about 20 in the Mach 6, but Rebel feels a lot lower, a lot more natural, a lot more flexible. And look at this. I'm going to try to lift up both my toes as hard as I can on both of them. When I lift up my toes in the Rebel, you can see that this foam completely bends as I'm flexing my foot. In the Mach 6, I try that same thing, and it's bending a little bit, but it feels so much. Again, look at the Rebel, look how much flex, look how much flex here. This feels like a much stiffer shoe, and of course it doesn't have 100 miles like the Rebel, but I can tell with the foam this tall, for example, if we take a look at something like the 1080 here, it is never going to flex as much as a lower shoe with less stack like the Rebel. And as I'm putting, this is the Rebel V3, and as I'm putting these shoes on right now, taking a look at this, and I got them flipped, I should have got the reverse, but the Rebel V4 feels pretty similar to the Rebel V3 in terms of that flexibility, and I apologize if anybody was offended by the bending. And the Mach 6 feels, flexibility-wise, not necessarily how much foam, but it feels more similar to something like the 1080 as we have these on side by side. So the feel of the Rebel, just walking, just standing, I get some ground feel. I feel like my toes have control. In the Mach 6, none whatsoever. There's not a ton of ground feel in here, especially in the midfoot area. Up in the forefoot, I get a little bit, and I do have some control, but compared to the Rebel, and guys, this is all relative, Mach 6 is going to have a lot more ground feel than something like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, but compared to the Rebel, there's not a lot of ground feel or flexibility. Now, I enjoyed my Rebel V3 a lot for walking and for playing out in the backyard and for going to the grocery store. It's a super comfortable shoe, but standing in these side by side, Mach 6 has a little bit more support, feels like a much more structured shoe. Again, feels more like a max cushion shoe on foot in comparison to the Rebel. Does not feel like a max cushion shoe in comparison to something like the 1080. But pairing these guys up like this, Rebel definitely feels like a 30 and a 24 millimeter stack height versus the 37 and 32 that we're getting in the Mach. And then the last thing I like to do here is a little bit of just a tip test to see how the rocker is. And you'd be surprised with some super rockered shoes like the SC Trainer V2, you can really feel yourself tip. Neither of these are super rockered shoes. Neither of these feel like I'm tipping right along, which is nice sometimes in a regular shoe that you want to use around town, as a good daily trainer should be able to do. The other nice thing is with the shape of the foam on both of these, the opposite of a rocker is this disconnected foam feeling, where you can see that in a shoe like the Speed 4, the foam comes up in the middle, and that can give it this feeling like the back of the platform is hitting before the front of the platform, and it's two different pieces, so boom, boom. We got a similar thing going on in the Nova Blast 4, where it goes boom, boom, not as noticeable running in the Nova Blast 4, but for standing and walking. But the good thing is, I'm happy to report neither of these have these feeling. Rebel V3 feels a little bit softer and more flexible though. Mach 6 feels a little bit more structured and supportive. All right, guys, it is, oh, look at that, man, 8:54 p.m. We're going to get to bed the earliest we've gotten to bed in about a week. Hopefully, let's check this out. Oh, I got 5:11 last night and averaging 6 over the past week. That's not good. I know someone's going to tell me I should get more sleep. I should get more sleep. And that's why we're going to bed early. I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow for a run comparison. Not a first run review, but a run comparison of two of the top lightweight training shoes on the market. Let's get it. All right, guys, it is 5:23. We are going to take the Rebel V4 and the Hoka Mach 6 to the gym, hit the treadmill, do a back-to-back comparison. We got the Luca clothing hat on this morning. Or it's not on yet, but this is what we're going to pop on. Shout out to Luca. And we got the OS First thin socks as a backup in case the Mach 6 destroys our feet. All right, guys, let's do it. All right, guys, we're off. Man, we're a little bit late this morning. But the positive thing is, I told you last week, I started doing this only last week, and this is probably my 5th or 6th time now. And I have 2 alarms. I have my Coros Pace 3 alarm, which is on my wrist. It's my running watch. And then I have my phone alarm. And today I snoozed the Coros Pace 3 alarm, and my phone wasn't in the room. My phone was outside, but I woke up at 5:17. And so that means my body clock is getting a little bit better, a little bit more used to the new routine, which is great. Because a few weeks ago, I probably would have just slept until 7 if I snoozed that first alarm and the phone didn't go off. So this morning is going to be all about, from a running standpoint, nice, relaxed mileage. We got 4 20-mile days in a row. Yesterday, we got the 23-mile long run, and then the 3 days before that, we did 20-mile double days. So I don't know if I've ever done that before. So this is probably the day to take it a little bit easier. So we're gonna do 30 minutes in both shoes on the treadmill, about 4 miles, or 30 minutes in the Rebel, and then I'll switch into the Mach 6 and do 30 minutes in the Mach 6. Now, I am definitely gonna do the Rebel first. If you guys have ever run in 2 shoes in a back-to-back workout like this, it is super weird. I learned my lesson. Do not do the more cushioned one first and then switch into the lower stack one. It feels super weird. I did this when I was working out in the Hoka Cielo X1 in the Vaporfly. I did the Cielo X1 first, and then I switched into the Vaporfly, and it felt like I was wearing a barefoot shoe. So I'm not gonna make that mistake today. I'm gonna do the Rebel V4 first. It's a little bit lighter weight, a little bit less stack, a little bit more minimal. Don't tell them I called it minimal. And then we'll switch into the Hoka Mach 6, which got some more stack. So I am gonna crank the heat up. It's kind of cold. It's 52 degrees. That's cold for me. And I know it's probably gonna be 70 later today, but in the mornings at 5 a.m. it's just cold. So I'm gonna crank the heat, crank some music, and I'll see you in a few when we get there. Man, I'm like Pavlov's dog. I just heard someone else swipe their card and go in the gym, and I'm like, beep. That means it's time to get these miles in. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Oh, they got the flute music going this morning. Now, man, I said this last night, but the Rebel V4 is one of the most comfortable shoes I've put on. And it's not comfortable in a traditional way that you might think about a running shoe being comfortable, like the 1080 V13 of the Gel Nimbus, because it doesn't have a ton of stack, it doesn't have a ton of padding in the upper. Let's take a little pause with the flop here. Like, look at this, there's not a lot of padding up here. Even if you compare it just to like the Cloud Monster, there's more padding. Cloud Monster has a lot more cushion than the Rebel here, at least visually, right? Cloud Monster also has maybe even a little bit of roomier upper, but what the Rebel does is it molds to your foot. It conforms to your foot. It becomes an extension of your foot the more that you wear it, and that's why this is a super comfortable shoe. And I've never worn a barefoot shoe, but I imagine that it's a similar sensation where that shoe becomes part of your body almost. And I haven't had that in a running shoe, at least in recent years. And that's why I keep comparing this thing to Nike Free Run, Nike React Infinity, because those old Nike shoes, that's what they did. You're inside the shoe. I think the way that I described it a few weeks ago was my foot is like the air inside of a football. And this looks like a football, an American pigskin, because the way these laces are crossed and tight. It's a little bit of a weird fitting upper, but once you get some more time in it, it breaks in super nicely. All right, guys, mileage, let's go. Man, I'm just bopping along here at a super relaxed pace, but these feel super weird, man. The last 3 shoes I ran in were the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, the Hoka Mach 6, and Asics Nova Blast 4 yesterday. And the Rebels right now, they feel like, I don't know. It feels like I got nothing on my feet compared to this. So everything is relative, because when I did that 100-mile week in these, I did a 23-mile long run. They felt like way more cushion than I needed. And now, after running in all those, these feel a lot lower. So quick bathroom break, and then we're going to get a few more miles into these and switch it to the Mach 6. Let's go. All right, we just finished 4 miles. We got to recalibrate, of course, with the Coros every time. Boom, 4 miles in the Rebel V4, 8 something average pace. Yeah, 8:13 average pace. And man, these feel way more similar to the Rebel V3 than anything else that I've run in recently. And especially in comparison to the last 3 shoes I ran in yesterday, 22 to 20. I think I got 23, but I said 22 in the thumbnail because I know somebody would say you didn't track the last mile because I had to run back home to grab my phone to do tracking. But 22 to 23 miles in the Nova Blast 4, and then the day before that we had 20 miles in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Oh no, the day before that we actually did Mach 6. We had 20 miles in this, and then the day before that was the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. So in comparison to all of those shoes, the Rebel feels a lot less cushioned. And now putting on the Mach right now, man, this guy feels tight in comparison to the Rebel. This is crazy. So on the Rebel here, I just did 4 with some strides at the end. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the Mach. I have a lot more miles on the Rebel, so I'm a lot more familiar with it and how it runs. Mach, we're still getting acquainted with. So I might do another run today, actually, just in the Mach,
outside so I can get some fresh insights on this guy. But all right, another 4 miles with strides in the Mach. Then we'll pop out for some post-run analysis. Let's go.
All right, let's see. We just finished 4 miles in strides in the Mach 6. Recalibrate. A little bit faster on this one. Averaged a 7:30 pace, exactly 30 minutes. Would you look at that? Now, because we went second in the Mach 6, I was a little bit more warmed up than when we went first with the Rebel, so I was able to push the pace a little bit more. Coming off the long run yesterday, I didn't want to push it too much in the beginning, but finished with some good, faster strides in the Mach 6 here. I think getting down to, I actually don't know. The treadmills here, they only have miles per hour. They don't show pace. So sometimes I got to Google if I want a specific pace. Today I just went by feel. So I was going from on the last mile with strides, I was going from 8.5 miles an hour on the recovery to 9.3 to 9.7 miles per hour on the working sections. And guys, going from the Rebel to the Mach here, this 37 millimeters of stack was super noticeable. Now, I did the comparison in the first run video of this versus the Triumph. They both got 37 millimeters of stack, but this just feels a little bit lower. But in comparison to the Rebel here, and I don't know if it's even that noticeable on camera, it's not super noticeable, but on foot, the Rebel, the Mach feels a lot taller, and I think it's a little deceiving here because the Rebel has more of that wrap feeling where the foam goes up the sides. The Mach has it a little bit, but with the Mach, the key thing is you feel like almost like you're on top of the shoe. You don't feel as locked into the shoe. And so one thing that I did notice today was this feels a little bit less stable than the Rebel. And it's not even that the Mach is that much skinnier. It's just the Rebel with such a wide base here has a little bit more support. Also with that lower to the ground feeling, I felt much more in control in the Rebel versus the Mach 6 here. So Mach 6, if you need stability, if you need extra support, this is probably not going to be the shoe for you. It felt a little bit narrow, interestingly enough, for me today. But man, this is a fun shoe. Completely different character than the Rebel. That's why I'm glad I'm running in these back to back. Also glad I get to do some more miles in the Rebel here. Let me know if you guys want to see the 200 mile review of this at some point. I got a lot more daily trainers to work through, so I'm not sure when I'll prioritize this. But let me know if you want to see the 200 mile review and what other shoes you want to see this compared to that I have not compared it to yet. But yeah, the foam in the Mach 6 is much more energetic, much bouncier, and feels a lot more protective. I was surprised at how much that came through today, 37-32 versus the 30 and 24. And guys, that is an 8 millimeter difference in the forefoot here. So that is really noticeable out there. And it also feels a little bit more like the foam in the Mach 6 is doing that job of running. Versus in the Rebel here, it's you doing the job running. The foam is going to give you a little bit of cushion, a little bit of bounce, but the bounce in the Mach is way more noticeable. And now this guy only has 25 about miles after today. So we'll have to see how the durability goes in terms of how active this foam will stay later in life, because I know that was an issue with the Pro 5 Plus, that blue foam that you saw in the orange or blue Mach 5 I had yesterday. So we'll have to see how the durability this guy gets on. But so far through these 25 miles, it's been bouncy, soft, energetic, but a touch more like a daily trainer than a lightweight speed shoe, especially today. All right, guys, we actually got to go to the car now. It is, what time is it? It's exactly 7. We're a little bit behind schedule today. All right, let's hit the road. Another beautiful morning, man. I'm just in a t-shirt and shorts.
and it is feeling good out here. Spring has sprung. So we got 8 total miles in this morning, and that's after a 23 mile, 22 mile long run and 83 miles of total volume in the previous 4 days. And I think I hit about 115 miles per week last week. And so if you are in marathon training, if you're looking for something to offer protection and cushion for a higher mileage period of training, the shoe that I'm holding in my hand here, the Mach 6, this is gonna be a much better choice for you guys. A shoe like the Mach 6 is gonna be a really good choice as a daily trainer, or even for those days where you're doing some faster, shorter efforts. You might prefer the Mach 6 over the Rebel. It's just got a little bit more cushion, 37 in the heel. Super noticeable. It's not a little bit more cushion. It has a lot more cushion than the Rebel. It's more built up. It's more supportive all throughout. It just feels a little bit easier to run. Not easier to run. It feels like it makes it easier for you to run. They're both easy to run in shoes. Neither of them have anything weird going on. No weird tech. But this guy just has a little bit more pop and bounce naturally in the forefoot here. Now, if we take a look at the Rebel, this guy is much lower stacked feeling on foot. You got a ton more ground feel, a ton more control and stability. And it's interesting because we don't necessarily usually think of lower stack shoes as being a ton more stable, but in the case of these two, this guy is the way more stable choice. And I didn't notice that in my first runs with the Mach. It felt decently stable, but compared to the Rebel V4, this guy is a way flatter platform, and because it's lower with a little bit of a wider base, it feels like the better choice if you want something with more stability. Now this one also has a way better fitting upper. This is roomier. It's got a little bit more length in the toe box than the Mach. In the Mach, you have to size up half a size. This one I go true to size and it feels great. It doesn't have as much padding, but it doesn't need it. It's got everything that you need and nothing that you don't. It feels like what New Balance did with this is they took a look at the market, they took a look at what everyone's doing, they kept the good parts, adding a little bit more cushion, adding a little bit of PIBA, updating the design language, and they stripped back everything that you didn't need. They didn't go 37 millimeters like Hoka. They didn't add a ton of padding. They didn't throw a plate in here or do anything crazy. So if you like that feeling of the Rebel V3, which was lower to the ground, more flexible, and guys, this is going to be a more flexible shoe. It's more flexible in the forefoot for sure than the Mach 6. If we take a look at the Mach 6 here, and I am back in my neighborhood now, so I know everyone gets up in arms, but if we take a look at the Mach 6 here, this is not as flexible. It does not give you as much control as the Rebel. So Rebel's going to be that choice if you want lower to the ground, more stability, more control. Mach's going to be that choice if you want more protection, more bounce in the shoe, and you want the shoe to take a little bit of the burden off of your legs for running. Now, because these are so different, I could see a world where you have both of these in your rotation. So you use the Rebel for shorter, faster, maybe even treadmill running. Someone mentioned to me yesterday that they use the Mach 5, not the 6 here, but they use the Mach 5 exclusive for treadmill running. I can see the Rebel V4 becoming a really good treadmill running shoe because it's not the most built up. Mach 6 here has a little bit more cushion than I typically need for the treadmill. It doesn't get in my way, but a little bit more cushion. And then if you got the Rebel for shorter, faster treadmill, the Mach would become that everyday running shoe, that daily trainer. And I said this in my first run review of this shoe, I'll say it again, this is a daily trainer. That's the vibe that this is giving me, especially comparing it to the Rebel. This feels like something I want to put on every day and just crank out a 10-mile run each morning. If I needed one shoe to do that and then go walk the dog, pick up the kids from school, I don't have a dog, but if you guys have dogs, then this would be a really good choice for that. I think this might take the place of something like the Nike Pegasus for some runners who are still using that, and at $140, this is a much better choice for a daily trainer that you want to use for everyday life stuff than something like the Pegasus. So both are nice shoes, they just got different use cases. Now, I'm about to back into the driveway here, and I do want to get
a few more asphalt miles on the Mach before we close out the video, because I have a ton of mileage in the Rebel. I have 100+ miles in that. I need to get some more miles in this so we can test the durability, and I want to do some strides on the pavement in this, so I don't need to do a super long run, but I do want to get out for one more run today in the Mach. It is more of a down mileage day for me since I came off super high mileage last few days, but test out how this does with top end speed, work down to that 550, 540 pace, and see what it gives me. So we are home, time for daddy duty. I will see you guys in a bit. We just pulled up to the bagel shop. Shout out to Family Dough Bagels in Mint Hill. Best New York style bagels in the Charlotte area. But what I wanted to show you guys was my data from the runs this morning. So we got side A here. This was in the Rebel. And now, gotta turn the music down. Currency's bumping a little too loud here. But in the Rebel, and I don't train by heart rate, but I thought this was interesting. My average heart rate was 129 beats per minute at a pace of 813. In the Mach, I averaged a 730 pace in basically the same heart rate. And I checked the Coros, and I actually think the tracking was accurate today. I had the watch strapped down super tight. There's no spikes in the data or anything. Let me just show you guys real quick. You can see my heart rate is pretty consistent throughout the whole thing. There's just one little dip down here because I had to pause for a second, but I stopped for a minute in both runs. So same thing here. And then if you check the Rebel, we also got a pretty consistent heart rate. This is where I took that bathroom break, so it dipped down. But that's telling me that the Mach might be a slightly more efficient shoe for me, and you might be getting more speed assistance from the shoe. If you check out my splits here, I was clipping off at around a 730 pace on the treadmill, and my heart rate was in the 120s. Versus in the Rebel here, and granted I was warming up still, I had a nice low heart rate, but it's jumped when I started getting into those strides and doing some faster effort. Not jumped, it was only at 140, 149 at those strides, but I think I might be getting a little bit more speed assistance, a little bit more bounce from the Mach, which is how I talked about it earlier. And what we're seeing in this initial data here is suggesting that. Now, I don't train by the data, I don't train by heart rate, but it is cool to do a little bit of a comparison here. And of course, I'm not using a chest strap, I'm not using a stride pod for 100% accuracy, but I was in a controlled environment on the treadmill, which is one of the benefits of doing these comparison tests on the treadmill. All right, guys, we're gonna pull up to the bagel shop real quick, hit them with the whole wheat everything, and then I will see you guys for run number 2 later today. The best daily trainer for picking up everything bagels, Hoka Mach 6. All right, guys, 11:47 a.m. time for run number 2. Now, it is 64 degrees outside, and it is absolutely beautiful. I told you guys the other day, spring is the best season in Charlotte here. Just look at this. The grass is green, the sky is blue. So we're gonna change out of the pants, out of the Viore pants, into some sort of a short situation. Shorts and t-shirt weather, finally. Early March here, and then we'll hit the road in the Hoka Mach 6. We're gonna do the New Balance shorts, rocking the Hoka shoes. Let's get it. And we're going with the super thin, janky brand Amazon socks so my feet don't get castrated. How's it going, man? Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You got another package, too.
Okay, cool. All right, so we got another one from New Balance. What do we think this is? They said they were sending me 2 things. So this could either be a stability shoe or a trail shoe. So we're going to see. I'm excited to highlight some different stuff on the channel. We've been doing a lot of these lightweight tempo shoes, daily trainers, race shoes, but it's going to be fun to highlight a few different things. This is probably the stability shoe if I had to guess. Let me know what other stability shoes you want to see on the channel, because I want to make sure I'm covering all the best shoes that you guys are the most interested in. So drop it below if you are interested in stability shoes. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you. And now we got this one too, Decker's Brands. Decker's Brands
I believe is Hoka. So this might be another pair of Mach 6s. I just couldn't wait. I was so excited. I had to go and buy them in the store because I wanted to get the first run review up. So if this is another pair of Mach 6s, we'll figure out something else to do with it. All right, guys, so it's only noon right now. So plan for this run. And the reason I'm doing it this early is because I wanted to be able to hang out with the kids later, not worry about getting on my double. So I'm doing it during Reevesy's nap. And I can do this because I'm on paternity leave right now. So if I were working my regular 9 to 5, I would likely not be able to go on a run at noon, but here we are. So plan is to get a nice, smooth 4-miler in, and I'll throw in some strides again at the end. The main purpose of this run is for those strides, to see how this shoe performs out here with a little bit more of that pop, a little bit more of that faster running versus the Rebel. I'm not going to take out the Rebel because, again, I have already 100 plus miles on that shoe, so I mainly want to see how this Hoka does with a little bit more speed put into it, so we can do that full breakdown of Mach 6 versus Rebel when I get back up in here. So shoes are fully tied, we got no flop, I got the thin socks on so my toes aren't getting absolutely destroyed, and we are ready to go. Look at these clean white beauties.
All right, guys, we just finished a fun 4-miler, average 7:10 pace, about 30 minutes.
Man, it was so nice to do 4 miles. My shortest runs recently have all been 8 miles because I'm trying to get as much mileage as possible right now for this marathon. It's not really efficient to do a double day with 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, but I want to take this as a recovery day, which for me doesn't necessarily mean running super slow, but running fewer miles. So, and I didn't have time to do 12 this morning, and I wanted to get the Hoka on the asphalt. So that's why we did an inefficient double day. All right, guys, I'm gonna grab a few shoes from inside and we'll pop out and do this analysis.
All right, guys, 4 fun miles done on the asphalt in the Mach 6, bringing our daily total up to 12 miles. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, and then we have about 30 miles on this guy, I believe 28 to be exact, and about 110 on the Rebel. Now, fun shoe, but where we got to start our analysis today is the New Balance Rebel V3, and yes, this time I mean V3, not asterisk big V4 on the screen. I do mean Rebel V3, and if you guys have been following the channel, or if you haven't, this was my favorite shoe of 2023. I deemed it that in October of last year, and there are 2 main reasons why. Well, 3 main reasons, but 2 that I want you to hold in your head and remember. The first is that it's a nice lightweight shoe. That's not important, throw that out. The second is this soft, bouncy foam. I absolutely loved the feeling of this supercritical EVA TPU blend, which is why when I first tried the Rebel V4 here, you guys remember I put it on, I did a little jog back and forth up here with both of these shoes on, and I said, I'm not sure if I'm quite feeling what they're doing with the V4 here. However, this shoe broke in, and I loved it. But this foam still holds a special place in my heart. This generation of fuel cell is awesome. It's in this shoe, it's in the SC Trainer, which I still recommend as a top long run shoe, the SC Trainer V2. That is an awesome shoe. And the third thing that I loved about the shoe is, now avert your eyes if you are sensitive to this, but how flexible this guy is. And this was my thumbnail for that video I did, Shoe of the Year 2023. I absolutely loved the feeling of the flexibility, and also with this having, I believe, 21 millimeters of stack up here in the forefoot, how much ground feel you get, how connected you feel, but also how much character you still get from the foam. Because a lot of the times when we think about flexibility, when we think about ground feel, we almost envision the foam disappearing and not giving us all too much of anything. That's not what happened in the Rebel V3. This is a lively foam. You still get a nice little bit of impact absorption, and when you run fast, you get a beautiful pop off this Rebel V3. Now, the reason why I'm harping on this is because those last 2 points, right? The soft, bouncy foam and the nice flexible platform here, those 2 things split out into 2 different directions, and that's what we're getting from the Mach 6 and the Rebel V4. It's almost like the Rebel V3 split itself into two and created this shoes. So in the Rebel V4, you are getting that super flexible platform still. You're getting more of that ground feel up in the forefoot. And yes, this went up in stack height, but only 3 millimeters versus the V3. So it still does retain that super nimble feel. Yes, the platform got wider, but it still does give you a nice connected feeling, which I loved in the V3. And then in the Mach here, when I was running this afternoon, I realized that this foam is nearly identical in feeling to that supercritical EVA TBU blend that we saw in the last generation of fuel cell, not this PIBA EVA blend. It's 20% PIBA, 80% EVA. So with this Mach 6 here, it's almost like they copy and pasted that fuel cell foam into here and raised the stack height. So it is giving you that soft, bouncy, super fun ride, which is extremely squishy, squirrely, and dare I say it, unstable. And guys, this made me realize I think we have to add a new rule to the rule book, to the credo, to the manifesto. Do not judge a shoe by its girth. I was fooled by this thing. Gotta wave to the neighbors. She was actually rocking a pair of Mach 5s earlier today. We gotta get her in the Mach 6. But the new rule that we gotta add to the rule book is do not judge a shoe by its girth. I was fooled into thinking that this would be a stable shoe, and through the first 20 miles, it felt fairly stable. Out here today, as I was putting down a little bit of faster pace, doing those strides, this is not a stable shoe. Yes, it's still got a little bit of that girth, but it's not gonna be nearly as stable as the Rebel V4 here. And the key thing that I think you guys are gonna be interested in is it's a lot less stable than the Mach 5 here. And that's one of the interesting things, right? As I'm thinking about what I loved about the Rebel V3, the lightweight, soft bouncy foam, flexible feel. What I loved about the Mach 5 here was how versatile this shoe is. And that's coming from the dual foam setup. So on the top here, you get this soft bouncy foam, but then on the bottom, you get that firmer, more structured foam with the wide base to add stability. So I said this earlier in the video last night as we were doing the breakdown in the office, right? I was a little bit scared that doing away with this firmer EVA would do two things, which is one, reduce the durability of the shoe. I know they added rubber on the Mach 6, which they didn't have here, but as I'm talking about durability in this context, I mean of the foam, because when this supercritical EVA goes out, you do get a little bit more pop and structure from the bottom here. It's not gonna turn into a super mushy mess. And the second thing I was concerned about was the stability, because having this firmer foam on the bottom here makes a much more planted ride. This shoe feels extremely linear. Anytime I was running in it, it felt like it was going boop, 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 just popping me forward with this nice rolling rocker here. And so in the Mach, whoo, wow, that's bouncy, man. Let's see. Hey. But yeah, in the Mach 6 here compared to the Mach 5, the Mach 5 has much more of this rocker, which is a little bit more prominent. A little bit more of what makes this a fun ride is the firmer rocker. You're not getting that here. In this guy, it's all about that soft, bouncy foam, which is fun but very unstable. And so I've seen some stuff online recently on the forums where folks are saying shoes are not as fun anymore, and that's not true. These are two super fun shoes. The Rebel V4 isn't going to that crazy towering stack height that I know a lot of you guys don't like, and the Mach 6 here, it's giving you a 37 millimeter stack of a super fun, squishy, and squirrely foam. It's almost, and dare I say this, guys, I know you guys are fan favorites of the shoe, but it's almost like an unplated, non-plated Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. Yes, it feels very similar to that soft, bouncy PIBA, but with no plastic or metal piece in here to give you more support. And so if you are looking for a shoe that is dangerously fun, that might be the Mach 6. It is very different than the Mach 5. You're not getting that firmer roll-through feeling. It is gonna be more about that soft pop and bounce here in the Mach 6, but you're still getting the same degree of fun. Now, as we're thinking about putting these guys up head to head, Rebel V4, lighter weight, more stable, roomier upper. Mach 6, a little bit more fun, more cushion, more protective, but a more squirrely ride. And the last thing I'll say about the stability here is, if you take a look at the back of the shoe, it looks like they almost copied exactly what the Rebel V3 did. You have this nice curved foam, and it ends right at the back. And it's interesting because I often talk about the Hoka hoof. Let me grab this Mach 5 so I can show you guys. The Hoka hoof is this little cut here in the back, this little, almost looks like an incision where someone pushed in clay. But what it also means a lot of the time is that you get this little caboose hanging off the back of the shoe. And so Rebel V4, let's take a look here. This has got the Hoka hoof. So it's almost like New Balance copied Hoka with the Rebel V4, and then Hoka copied New Balance with the Mach 6. They kind of switched and changed places. So if you're a fan of that lighter weight, more stable, fun shoe for shorter distances, that's what the Rebel V4 is going to be offering. And ironically, that's what was in the Mach 5. If you are a fan of that bouncier, softer, a little bit more pop in the shoe from the foam, that's what the Mach 6 is going to be offering. Now, if you're a fan of that super versatile ride that could be good for everything, neither of these shoes is going to offer most of the market that. Now, I really enjoyed the Rebel V4 for every single run I did. I did recovery runs in it. I did a 23-mile long run in it, but I know a lot of you guys out there probably want a little bit more cushion than this offers, and I would suggest getting a little bit more cushion than this offers. Even a non-plated shoe like the Nova Blast, I mean, that was my favorite long run shoe. I would not recommend using this for 2.5-hour long runs if you have any option. This is not a long run shoe. Mach 6, I got to test it out for long runs, but I'm just going to tell you right now, with the stability being a little bit questionable here, I don't think this is going to be the best option for going out there for 2.5 hours. Yes, it has the taller stack, but as we get into those later stages of the long run, it's going to work your ankles a lot more than something with a little bit of a wider base like the Rebel V4 or a taller stack shoe with the plate might do. And then for the overall feel and vibe, Mach 6 with the stack still feels like a daily trainer, even though yes, it is soft and bouncy, it's fun going fast. And I should throw out my stats here from the run I just did, 4 miles, and I dropped down to 5 flat pace at the end with some downhill assistance. But I was ripping, I was turning over the legs, really good in this, and it was a fun shoe for that top end speed. So both of these shoes here can do that top end speed. These are awesome for doing strides, they're awesome for going down to marathon pace. So if you're looking for a fun daily option, Mach 6 is that for sure. If you need any stability, it's not going to be it. If you want something for shorter, faster efforts, that's going to be the Rebel here. Now, if we're thinking about value, at $140, Mach 6 is probably a little bit of a better buy if you want something for everyday miles where you're going to be going out there and running every day. Rebel V4 is a little bit better buy if you want something that you can use for the gym, for walking. This doesn't have a ton of cushion, but I really enjoy it walking around the yard, doing errands. It feels like a very natural shoe to have on my foot. Whereas the Mach 6, again, a little bit squishy, squirrely, unstable, not my favorite for non-running activities. And as I mentioned earlier, this would be a great pairing. These two can definitely coexist in your rotation, using the Mach for everyday runs, and then using the Rebel here for those shorter and faster runs. And then I would advise getting a plated shoe or a different higher stack shoe like the Nova Blast for long runs if you are going over 2 hours a lot of the time. Still have to test the Mach, but Rebel is not the best for that. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you today. If I think of anything else, I'll throw it at the end in the odds and ends section.
One last thing, guys, I did want to open up this Deckers box here to see if it is another pair of Mach 6s, because then I can tell you with certainty whether or not I just got a bad pair for the fit or if all the Mach 6s are super tight. Mach 6, 10.5. This blue is kind of vibing. It's a vibrant moment of truth. Yo, that's crazy. Yeah, this is definitely longer. That is wild. Yeah, guys, this blue one here, it's definitely longer. My foot, look at this. My toe is only coming up to here in the toe box. In the white one, my toe is all the way up at the end. All right, we're gonna bring these over to the coffee table. It's getting serious. All right, guys, white Mach 6. So this thing is kind of weird, this ruler, but we'll measure it right along the ridge line here. This one is going up to exactly 37 at the end. On the blue one here, this one is going up to 39 at the end. And I got them right on the ridge line from the back here to the ridge line. One interesting thing though, and I think why I didn't notice how unstable this was at first, is because this foam has now broken in a lot after 30 miles, and just feeling this in my hands versus the brand new pair, the one with 30 miles is so much softer and so much squishier. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference on camera here, but take a look at this. Pushing in the white, and then with the same force here, pushing in the blue, the white I can get in much farther. So again, guys, EVA
it's only going to show its true character after about 30 miles. You know I had to do it to you. All right, let's go. 234.5 on the white. 249 on the blue. All right, we outie. Hey guys, it got so serious we actually had to come back to the desk, and I want to add some context here before we sign off. So in the Mach 6, we got two left shoes that are the same size and 15 grams apart, and the blue one is also a centimeter longer, both 10.5 US men's D. And then in the Cielo X1, also 10.5, we got two shoes that are, look at this one is 270, and then the right one was coming in at 258 before. Let's see. Yep, still 258. So there is something weird going on with the quality control at Hoka. There's got to be, I don't know if they're producing these shoes at different factories or if something got mixed up in the production line, but in the blue one, 10.5 US, and that's my size in every single shoe you see over there, other than those two New Balances. I sized up in the 1080 because I needed a little bit more room in the recovery shoe, and I sized up in the SC Elite V4 because that's all they had. Now, in the blue one, I felt like I could have sized down here. And in this one, it was completely cramping my toes and I could barely fit. So I'm not sure what's going on. My guess is that this is what happens when you grow a little bit too fast. Quality control slips a little bit and you got to get the product out there without making sure everything is set up properly. I did check the tags and these are both produced in Vietnam. So it could be same factories, different factories. And also the last version of the shoe, Mach 5, also produced in Vietnam. So that is truly all I have for you today, guys. My advice would be, if you're going to get the Mach 6, which is a great shoe, try it on in store first to make sure the pair you get is the right size. Have them pull a few different sizes for you because you might need to size up, you might need to size down, you might need to go true to size. I don't know. That's all I can tell you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.